We have breaking news as the Toronto Maple Leafs have just robbed the Flyers. And after weeks, months of speculation surrounding a trade, Brad Treliving gets the job done, getting Scott Laughton. And the return that they had to give up is not only very reasonable, but more details have come out revealing that it is way better than fans initially thought. We're going to break that down and discuss what this means going forward as the Leafs finally did it. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Your guys' support has been absolutely unbelievable, so thank you guys for that. Darius, we are now in the final stretch. We are 2 hours away from the deadline, and the Leafs might not be done. There might be more moves on the horizon, but regardless of that, they just made a huge trade surrounding Scott Laughton, and we do have the full return. And man, oh man, it almost got better and better with each tweet that came out. But ladies and gentlemen, Scott Laughton was traded to the Leafs for Nikita Grabenkin and a first-round pick. Now, this was the initial trade that we saw. Fans were a little bit split. Darius and myself both think it was an absolute steal of a deal. Yeah. However, this just dropped a minute ago. The Leafs also not only get a fourth-round pick, they get a sixth-round pick, and 50% of Scott Laughton's salary is retained, which opens up unbelievable flexibility. We'll have more videos on this later. But Darius, in a nutshell, I mean, we heard Easton Cowan, we heard Fraser Minton for Scott Laughton and a first-round pick. The price was absolutely ridiculous. You get the job done. You give up in that second tier. You kind of give up probably the one I would want to give up the least, in Nikita Grabenkin, because he's a fan favorite. But man, oh man, what a fantastic job by Brad Treliving. And I said it in the video earlier this morning, hoping that the price comes down as the hours go on, and it went down heavily.
Yeah, so the day has finally come, Nick. We've been talking about Scott Laughton for 2 months at this point, and he is a Toronto Maple Leaf at last. He's finally a Maple Leaf, and this is a great trade for the Toronto Maple Leafs, considering what the market was and everything we've heard the last couple of days and what Yanni Gourde went for. This is a great trade. You knew you were going to have to trade your first-round pick next year. We knew that was going to happen, but you're in win-now mode. We do not care about the first-round pick. We don't know what that first-round pick is going to be. We knew it was in play, and for this to not be Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton, and it's Nikita Grabenkin, who, to be honest, might see some NHL time over the course of the next couple of years, but I don't know how much time he's going to see with the Leafs. Now he gets an opportunity to play probably in the NHL with the Flyers organization, which is good for him. And on top of that, the Leafs get 2 draft picks in return as well. 50% retained salary, and they can go out and make another move ahead of the deadline at 3 o'clock again today. So very good work from Brad Treliving. I do apologize for everything I've said the last day or so, because I was like, I don't think this guy's going to make any moves, but they do go out. They get Scott Laughton, and the one thing that's been lost in all of it, I know we've been talking about it, but there's been so many rentals flying. He's not a rental. He's going to be here next year as well. This is a great move for the Maple Leafs. He's, you don't have to re-sign him or worry about that in the offseason. He's here for this playoff run. He's here for next year as well. He's going to take pressure off of Austin Matthews and John Tavares as well in terms of the matchup game and playing on the penalty kill. Austin Matthews doesn't have to play as much, and he can play more power play and 5-on-5 time, which I think is a good thing. So again, he's going to take the load off of those two guys a little bit. So the Leafs are very formidable up the middle now. Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Scott Laughton, and David Kampf. That's very good. So they still have room to make another trade. And again, I think that this is a robbery, honestly.
Yeah, it is. And again, when we say robbery, if you're a Flyers fan out there, I mean, it's still a great deal it's still a good deal for the Flyers, but compared to the market, I mean, Scott Laughton, does he have the offensive upside of Braden Shen? No. Does he have the offensive upside of some of the other guys? Even Brock Nelson? No. Brock Nelson, and there were some reports, James Myrtle came out and said, now depending on who you value it, obviously Callum Ritchie is a very good player. He said the Leafs wouldn't even have been able to match that if they tried, because other teams and other GMs would have rathered Callum Ritchie over, of course, Easton Cowan. But for you to get the 2 picks, which they can now use to either facilitate another deal in the next 2 hours or use it in the offseason to make another deal, you have 50% of the retained salary. He's going to be the third-line center, Domi, whether he's going to move up to the flank spot in the third line or, of course, stick or they'll keep Pontus Holmberg in the second line. Maybe Pontus Holmberg might be, I don't know. There's going to be a bunch of different videos coming out on that. However, Darius, we're also being told the deal keeps getting better. I believe the first-round pick, with another video on it, is a conditional first-round pick. So we'll have to wait to see the conditions on that. So that makes the deal even better because there's conditions on that. So as stuff comes out, it just keeps getting better. You see this here. Leafs fans are going to love Scott Laughton for so many reasons. Certainly a great person and works his butt off. A good third-line center. Matthews, Tavares, Laughton, Kampf down the middle is really, really good. He was literally on TSN 5 minutes after the trade happened. There's so many Canada guy. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I think The biggest thing to keep in mind here is context. Obviously, me and Darius were talking about it before it even, once before this came out. If it was just a first and Nikita for Scott Lawton, I think it's a fine deal. I still would have been happy with it given his account. The fact that you get 50% retention on an already reasonable salary and you get 2 picks. These picks are being used. Are they going to be extremely valuable? Not really. But at the same time, we just saw Brandon Tanev get traded for a second. We saw Luke Shen get traded for a second and a fourth. So having those picks is going to help in future moves, whether that's this deadline or the next deadline. But in a world where depth players are getting seconds, Brandon Tanev just got a second. You're getting 2 firsts for Yanni Gourde, albeit they also got another player. I mean, you've shored up. This at least makes you a lot better than you were before because it also moves Domi around to probably,
Yes.
I mean, they can either go second line left wing there for Max Domi and take Pontus Holmberg out of the equation. You could keep him on the wings and move up Bobby McMahon. Like there's a lot of options now and we'll have videos on it. But the question mark now becomes what do they do with all these lineups? And most importantly, this came in 2 hours before the deadline. I don't know if they're done just yet.
I don't know if they're done yet. I think that they're probably going to make another move. It might be a defenseman at this point, but if you look at the lineup now, Scott Lawton in the middle, yes, you can move Domi over to the wing now where I think he's better and probably will take some pressure off the player, which he hasn't really been playing center too much, but still at times, right? He has been doing that and he might be relied upon to do that if they didn't make a move in the playoffs, which I don't think favors him. You move him to the wing. Now Robertson's on the other wing. Maybe you experiment with McMahon on that line, something like that. You can kind of play around with things. I think that's a better lineup. That it just makes you better, right? Heading into the playoffs. You're just a better team this way. So I think it's going to be a lot better for some of the other players to go, play on the wing. Pontus Holmberg is not going to be playing up the middle of the ice, first line or second line left wing either. So going to be very interesting to see what they end up doing in terms of, lineup decisions. But that frees up space for Robertson too on the third line. Maybe he can, score some more goals because, Scott Lawton's going to be feeding him. Max Domi's going to be there on the wing too. I just think it's a better dynamic. So I'm pretty excited about this trade. I thought they were going to give up a lot more, honestly. And not only that, they get draft picks, like you mentioned, in return that they can now flip ahead of this year's trade deadline at 3 o'clock. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they end up doing. If there's any other moves coming, I would suspect it's a defenseman at this point. I think they might be done at the forward position because Brandon Tanev, at the same time of this trade, just got traded to Winnipeg. So that's unfortunate, but we will, I'm sure we're going to see another move here.
I would have loved Brandon Tanev on the wing, but I mean, that's a fantastic ad for Winnipeg, who also got Luke Shen, a Leafs target. So Luke Shen is off the board. The value was a second-round pick and a fourth, which honestly, I would have loved the Leafs to match that as well, to add some depth in the defense. But maybe they're cooking up something bigger here. And ultimately, I mean, a fantastic move. And I mean, getting Scott Lawton at $1.5 million a year is absolutely absurd. And he's under contract, so you can keep him with the core. Again, it's a first pick. We knew it was going to be a first-round pick. That pick is not going to be a more useful player than Scott Lawton is over the next 3 to 4 years, and the Leafs are trying to win the Cup. You give up Gurbenkin. Among the prospects that they were going to give up, I'd much rather give up Gurbenkin compared to Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, and even some of the other B-tier prospects. We saw Nikita Gurbenkin. We were very high on him, both of us, but he's a very, he's an okay skater. I just don't think he would have been on the Leafs anytime soon with the amount of depth that they have at their wings. So let us know down below what your thoughts are. A fantastic trade, a robbery for the Leafs. More moves are coming. We'll be live soon as well, so make sure to stay tuned for that. See you guys later.